All right, boys. Week 7. Week 6. I know the weeks. Another lunchtime power ranking. So during stand-ups this morning, I already filled out scores, but I'm gonna try to keep this on a tight. I don't know. I got like a half hour, I think. We're gonna jump into it, and we got some spicy moves this week actually. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened, injuries, trades, all that. So we can look at scores, but then um, yeah, we'll look at how I think that affected the power rankings. So as always, I'm gonna start down here at the bottom. We're gonna look at Mark and Chris's team. Kudos to Mark for hanging in with Caleb. I think he's. I don't know if he's going to be just as good at this point. He still is keeping Jordan Love on his bench for some reason, which, like, I think Jordan Love is good, but, like, why do you need, I guess, just the backup you're holding here for bye weeks or an injury or something? Whatever. Caleb actually seems like he's good now, so that's nice for Mark, nice for the Bears. Great game from Caleb. We'll see if he can keep it up and threaten like Rookie of the Year. Joe Mixon coming back, that's huge. Olave with a negative score, absolutely brutal. And then I saw Goddard went out. He said he might be out for like week to week, or he might be out multiple weeks. I feel like I saw that. Well, now it says he might not be out. So anyway, but I know that you also have Njoku sitting here who is back from his injury. And then Tyreek, of course. Dobbins had another great game, but I know he's had a couple down weeks. Tony Pollard's been like the only bright spot of the Tennessee offense. I mean, yeah, like Mark's team, I don't know. Like they are putting up a score now, so this is good. He had been kind of disappointing, I guess, just between the injuries to Mixon and Caleb's slow start and Tua going out. Like we all know he started slow, but he did get the win this week. Good job, Mark. Not gonna like instantly shoot up the rankings, but helping yourself out, putting up points. So good job. Then we got Chris. Yeah, his team was not good. It's still not good. Zach Moss continuing to lose carries out to Chase Brown. It's unfortunate. Najee actually had a decent game for once in his life. Drake London, we kind of like bagged on this during power rankings. He's a top 6 wide receiver. I don't know if you're like, I feel like if you're picking a person in the first round, you're expecting them to finish like, top 5 at their position. So this is kind of like right on the cusp there, right? Really hasn't been as bad as, at least as I thought, for a first round pick. Now, granted, it looks like a lot of those points are shoved into just a couple games so far. Like the benefit or like what you want out of your first round pick is not just high scores, but consistency, right? You want them to like carry your team week to week, and throwing out these low scores is not great. But I mean, we're not even halfway through the season. So if Drake London can keep delivering at kind of this level, and even an odd game down here or there is not a huge deal, but maybe I should reconsider the Drake London slander for the first round pick. And finally, Keenan Allen. I'm going to say, like I told you so. Yeah, I thought he would be great this year, or at least like a solid contributor. Maybe not like a 1, but like a week-to-week solid wide receiver 2/flex, and he just hasn't done it. Finally gets the 2 touchdowns this week, but he's about to go on bye. I don't know. I still just, he has so much talent and such a history of delivering that I don't want to write him off, and I feel like his second half really can't be, I mean, it has to be better than the first half, right? He's finally healthy. Caleb's getting in the swing of things. Maybe this is going to help Chris's team. Lad McConkey comes back. And Chris still has, this is this team is still not great, don't get me wrong. But this is a power ranking. We're talking about the kind of the future of the team. He still does have Pacheco potentially coming back. Rasheed is done for the year, but Pacheco could come back and do something. Algier is still taking a lot of work from Bijan. He had a good game. Like there are a couple more pieces here than like it doesn't look quite as dire to me, basically. Still bad, still like bottom third in the league for sure, but maybe there's a couple pieces to play with and things to hope for. But yeah, just not a strong enough running back core. The receivers are just kind of hit and miss. Even if London is solid every week, even if Keenan Allen is decent, you're just not going to survive with like Dontavian Wicks as your wide receiver 2 throwing up 2. Like this ain't it. So Laporta did get a touchdown. Yeah, it kind of is what it is for Crams at this point. Just keep hoping for the best. Logan's team, putting shit together, man. I'll talk about him. I kind of already went through a rough ranking on my Google Doc there, but we'll kind of like explain the reasoning for where I think I have him where I do once I get to that point. But just looking at the team, Baker is just absolutely going off. This is going to be like Baker's best year of his career. Yeah, if he keeps throwing like this, it's funny, like the Tampa Bay offense, I feel like wasn't super pass heavy until Brady got there, and then he threw for the most pass attempts in NFL history, and now they're just letting Baker continue to sling it like 30 times a game, which is kind of crazy, but I mean, their team isn't bad, so I guess it's kind of working. Madison, Derrick Henry might be the new front runner to finish as a running back 1. I really thought it was going to be Saquon, but D. Henney, they're just giving him so much work. Yeah, and just other than that, like solid pieces up and down the board. Tyler Lockett's catching touchdowns, 100-yard games now. Jamison Williams is fine. Pittman, I am a little bit worried about Pittman. It sounds like Richardson almost played this week, and it sounds like he is going to play week 7. And I mean, I guess 10 points with a touchdown is kind of lucky anyway, but he is not going to improve with Richardson at quarterback. So that is a minor ding. But overall, so Logan's team scored 135 almost, and that was without his second best running back, which is Jonathan Taylor, which is already saying a lot if Jonathan Taylor is your second best running back, and Malik Neighbors, who also is questionable, likely to come back in week 7. So without 2 of his top maybe 4 players, he's still putting up 135 points. Like that's and he had the league record 2 weeks ago. This is now his second high score in 3 weeks for the league. Yeah, Logan's definitely on a huge upswing. And especially because a lot of these points are coming from places maybe besides like the Pittman thing I just talked about, but like Kincaid's going to be good. Jamison Williams has been consistent. Henry, like I'm not saying that these will continue, but this isn't like Alexander Madison having a 30-point game that he's never going to do again, right? Like if he can get those guys, the Jaden Reeds and the Madisons, to just deliver at like a decent clip, then he's going to have these guys coming in as bad as, returning to the lineup. And this team is lethal at this point. On the flip side, yeah, Scotty's team, man, started off so hot, and now they're just like not. I don't know what to say. Down to 3-3. His cumulative wins is still pretty good, but a lot of that is propped up from the early season. Yeah, you score 74, you're going to fall down the rankings. Gibbs is still solid. He just is almost unfortunate that he plays on a team with David Montgomery, who's just running like an animal this year. Antonio Gibson really squandered this opportunity with Ramondre out. 13 for 19 is fucking awful. Yeah, that's just not good enough. Coleman, Roschon. Yeah, just a lot of like unfortunate, a lot of dudes on bye at one time and then just underperformance. So I don't think Scotty's team is bad by any means. Don't get me wrong. This is obviously a very bad score, but I think this is just like, everyone gets at least one down week unless you're Andrew maybe. So yeah, he's probably going to fall a little bit in the rankings, but nothing too bad. This is still a very solid team. the guys he needs to play are still playing. Ken Walker's still there. Even Kyle Pitts is getting catches now. So as long as he can get these guys back, Kareem comes back, JJ comes back, Xavier has some games. If A-Chain can come back, like this is a pretty loaded bench right here. And then even the starters are still kind of underperforming. Keon Coleman and Gibbs, I would hope to get more than 10 points, and Kyler, of course. So, yeah, still a solid team, just a down week. It's just unfortunate, but I don't think it's like an emergency situation for Scotty yet. But definitely less dominant than how we started the year, even, accounting for like sort of emergency situation or whatever. Tarv has been like Mr. Consistency, I feel like, this year. Jalen has a decent game. Kamara's continuing to this is like a down game for him, and it's still 12. Like, it's hard to complain too much about that as a down game. A.J. Brown comes back and is immediately good again. Like, these are now, whenever Nico went out, I said he needs this type of thing to happen, and it did. This is actually, he's been affected by a lot of activity recently, I guess. So A.J. Brown comes back. So Nico gets hurt. A.J. Brown comes back. That's not a one-for-one swap. Nico is, I don't think A.J. Brown's going to be like a top 2 wide receiver, but who knows? Garrett Wilson has a great week, but now he's going to have to contend with Devontae Adams. And I think Devontae just might still be better, at least this year. If this was Dynasty, I'd definitely want Wilson. But the chemistry, the way that Rodgers focuses on targets, there's a reason that he goes and gets all the guys he likes, right? Like, he's going to throw the ball to Devontae. And I think, more importantly, I think Devontae is going to own the red zone targets. Garrett Wilson did have a touchdown this week. He's going to be good. I think they're both going to be both Garrett Wilson and Devontae are going to be solid wide receiver 2s. I don't know if either of them is going to big dog the other one out of points, just dominate. But I don't think Devontae coming in helps Garrett Wilson, basically. So that's kind of an up on AJ, a down on Garrett, and then Amari Cooper, it's got to be an up, right? Going from Deshaun to Josh Allen. So this is another perk for him too. I do think it's good. I think even Tank getting the touchdown with Nico out. And Nico will come back, so it's not like a season thing, but 4 games is over a quarter of our season. A significant amount of time. So, but just solid. Solid scores. Like, Travis hasn't blown up crazy, but he hasn't really scored low any week either. Just a solid team. Caleb right there with him too. Just solid every week performance. Another solid week this week. Breece Hall bounces back the first game after Robert Saleh gets fired. I think this was his season high, and I think carries and yardage. If I'm not, it was. So, and that's even without any touchdowns. Still almost 20 points. So maybe that bodes well for his future on the Jets offense. I do feel like Devontae's arrival in New York could actually end up helping him too, just to stretch the field a little bit more. Jordan Mason is good. The one thing I'll say about him is, well, one, he was injured, so we'll see how he bounces back. But I feel like I've been seeing more chatter about, we just don't know what's going to happen with C-Mac. If he's out another month, it almost doesn't matter, right? Because you're so far into the season at that point. But if he comes back and starts practicing this week, it's not going to be enough to save Tron's season. But if I'm Caleb, I really don't want to lose Jordan Mason going into the fantasy playoffs, right? I think Caleb is decently well positioned to make the playoffs, but you don't want to lose one of your top running backs ending the regular season / into the playoffs. So something to look out for there. Not concerning in the immediate future. You keep running him out there while you have him, but just something to think about like I said, I've been seeing Twitters that maybe C-Mac is ready to at least come back to practice. And then we got, just solid options on the bench still. Yeah, just like a good, solid team, solid score. Okay, and then we got K-Man and John. This is a mid-off if I've ever seen one. Gino, yeah, if you're running out McNichols, it's a rough week. If you're K-Man. Devontae Smith, decent game. George Pickens, I saw that that Russ is going to get the I probably saw it on Twitter this morning. Russ is going to get the snaps with the first team this week in practice. So if he's finally healthy, I truthfully don't know if that's good or bad for Pickens and the rest of the Steelers offense, because Fields has been just fine. Like he's been very serviceable, and the Steelers are winning games. So I almost don't know why you'd want to change quarterbacks other than the fact that you're paying Russ a lot. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. Downs kind of goes the same way as Michael Pittman. I think they both had a huge benefit with Flacco coming in, but if Richardson comes back, I think it definitely hurts those guys. And they had not much to speak of on the bench. I don't know. K-Man's team is fine. This is a decent score. He got a win. I mean, he's 3-3, same record as some arguably better teams. So he's keeping himself in the hunt, but I still don't really – I'm not excited about like these running backs. Chris Godwin is doing pretty dang well this year, though, I will say. So that's a plus for him for sure. But yeah, not super excited about a lot of the depth, I guess I'll say. And then John's team, like Wolf. This is, I think, back-to-back low-score weeks for John. So he does get the performance out of Josh Allen. This is about what you could ask for. And that's great. Jerome Ford, he's actually his efficiency hasn't been bad this year, but he's getting less work. And I saw that Nick Chubb is likely to be back, at least playing, if not starting. Like you're basically losing at least the ability to lean on Jerome Ford as a starter. And I think Amari Cooper getting traded, just less weapons is not good for a run game. So this is rough. Etienne's about the same. He gets hurt, negative score, and Tank Bigsby has looked pretty decent. Yeah, I mean, these last couple games, again, they didn't run him too much because they were trailing this whole game against Chicago, but I don't know if the line is as distinct between Etienne and Bigsby as it was to start the year, and that's even assuming that Etienne is going to be healthy. LOL, Calvin Ridley. Again, when you're starting two tight ends with how bad tight end has been this year, this is not a good thing to see. Marvin Harrison, Wolf. Did he get hurt? Suffered a concussion, so he might even be out for a little bit. Yeah, this is really rough for John. This is not good. Rachaad White, he continues. He's now so I saw the big Tucker bid, and he did have a great game. Don't get me wrong. One, I obviously nobody else thinks that he's going to continue to do this except for K-Man. But really, the bigger thing, and probably the reason he didn't get more bids on him during waivers, was not even that he's bad or whatever, but it's that this backfield is now just going to turn into a committee. I'm sure Carl didn't like seeing that efficiency out of Tucker either, because now you just have three guys that are all going to be, hard to rely on. Like, this offense has been firing really well, but you just don't know which of those running backs is going to have a great week. It's just the classic committee problem. So John is a part of that suffering too. Yeah, just not good. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Josh Allen is the shining star on this team, and nobody else gets me excited. Yeah, maybe once Cooper Kupp comes back, could return week 7. Maybe this gives the team a spark, but even this I don't feel like is enough to really push John out of the bottom 3, unfortunately for him. All right, Carl's team. Rough week for James Conner. Not too worried about it though. Bucky Irving still gets points. They didn't the Tampa Bay scored like fucking 50 against the Saints or something. I didn't watch that game, but I feel like they had everyone was scoring. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, solid week. Tyrone Tracy's taken over this backfield for the Giants. Yeah, not much more to say. Like this isn't an elite team, but it's a very solid team. I remember where I put him in my power rankings, so I'll justify it there. But yeah, I mean, 111, Rookie of the Year candidate, great wide receivers. Got a couple young guys, Bigsby and Tracy, that are kind of stepping in for their teams. Kelsey was finally getting back on track. He had a bye this week, but his last 2 games have been at least decent. Yeah, I mean, solid team from Carl at this point, in my opinion. Tron's team can't decide if they're good or bad. They decided to have a not good week this week. Didn't help that he left a guy in there that didn't play. Brock Bauer is continuing to be good. Lazard's going to take a hit with Devontae coming back. Yeah, and really nothing on the bench that I give a shit about. McCaffrey, like I said, we'll see what happens, but I feel like it's getting to be a lost season for McCaffrey and for Tron. So, not the worst team, but still not awesome. Look at my team. Yeah, I knew I was going to lose this week. Like, that was just the odds playing Andrew. His team is just stacked. Montgomery's great. Trey Sermon, this is like an embarrassing performance. 18 for 20. You're a NFL running back. This is ridiculous. Otherwise, just unlucky. Mike Evans is always shut down by the Saints, so I really wasn't surprised by this one at all. Brian Thomas should have caught a touchdown. Like, I could sit here and say, like, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I could have beat Andrew, but, they didn't do it. Bijan, finally, this is his first multi-touchdown game, or I saw it on the broadcast. First multi-touchdown or first 2 rushing touchdown game of his career. So, yeah, I put him on a PIP last week, and he did finally deliver. My worry, though, is, like, we can see the snap count here, 56% of the snaps. I'm happy this happened. I'm still not, like, satisfied. Like, he needs to be doing this every week to justify his draft capital. Like, if you're going to be a first-round pick running back, you need to be putting up, like, minimum 15 points and really more like 20 a game. So he's trying to work his way off the shit list, but right now I'm still unhappy. I am very happy with a few things on my bench, actually, though. Devontae getting traded, I think, is definitely an upgrade from the Raiders to the Jets, so I'll finally get to just get him off the bench, but I feel like he'll come back with a better situation. Nick Chubb, it sounds like, is going to at least play this week. I probably won't start him just because I don't, he's going to work back in probably and split some carries. But even if that happens, I can get him for half the season. If I don't play him this week, I'll still get 6 or 7 weeks out of him before the playoffs even start. So that'll be great. And then Mark Andrews catches a touchdown. So surprising, not a ton of targets, I guess, but I'm going to have to lean on him next week. My starting tight end is on bye, so he's going to get another shot, but I have very tempered expectations. And then Carlo's team, what do you say? They're all good all the time. He scores 120. Saquon didn't even do anything. His team continues putting up points. I did say I wouldn't mind Stephon Diggs getting some more points with Nico out. And, it sucks to lose to Andrew, but Diggs had a great game, and we crushed New England, so happy about that. But, yeah, Andrew's going to stay number 1. That's all the teams. Let's look at the rankings this week. So this is these have already been updated. I already went and updated this table before I started recording this. One, I had Andrew. His come wins are just blow everybody else out of the water. He's got the second highest score in 5 out of 6 weeks so far. Like, there's just no debating, and he's leading in he's 6-0. Like, this is easily top team. Next, I put up Carl. This gets interesting. So I think if you were to ask me right now whose team is better, I'm taking Logan's team. So Logan is the other one that obviously jumped up a lot. Last week I had him a little low. I had him at 7, but I also called out, if you'll go back and if you want to pull receipts, I said these 4 teams, Caleb, Callan, Travis, Logan, these were all about the same tier. I just was like splitting hairs, trying to differentiate. And I feel like Logan just got unlucky with how I was just probably feeling that day. But really, he could have been as high as number 4, and I wouldn't have really argued. These were all about the same. And so this week, he jumps all the way back up. He's really, it says +4. It was really only like, it's not as dramatic of a jump in terms of my opinion of his team as this number indicates, I'll say. It just kind of fell how it fell last week, and then he had another great week this week, high score. But differentiating between Logan and Carl, I think Logan's team is better right now, and they could get even better with the return of Jonathan Taylor and Malik Neighbors. But I did just put Carl 1 up because of the actual wins here. So this is starting to shake out a little bit as we're about halfway through the season, as of next week, is that while Logan's team in a head-to-head I would take against Carl right now, the fact that Carl is 6-0 and nobody else even has 5 wins, like Carl and Andrew are just setting themselves up so nicely, it's going to be harder to catch them in terms of getting in based off of wins. And that's, 2/3 of the playoff spots are just for the highest number of wins, right? And so that they're kind of tied in that, from that sense, I guess, the 2 and the 3. Carl has the wins. His team is still very solid. But it's just like, even from this point on, Logan has to make up 3 games on Carl just to get to the second spot. Now, if things hold up the way they are, Andrew's going to take the first bye. And then remember, this year, it's the next high score gets the second bye spot. So Logan might be leading Carl in that. I can't even remember who has the second highest points for. I think it is Logan. So maybe from that perspective, he has a more of a lead on Carl. He's beating him by 50 points. It's a long season, though. A lot can change. And I feel like right now, winning games is a safer bet than trying to get in based on points. And right now, Carl's just doing that at a better clip. So still, half a season to go, but the more wins, the more weeks go by that Carl's not losing, it just makes him harder to catch. Like, even if his team regresses and just becomes an average team, he's built up such a lead now that it's going to be hard to catch him. So that's the reasoning here for the 2 and the 3 and why Logan looks like he jumped a lot. But I really just think it was just how the ranks fell from last week. So yeah, good job to Logan there. Scotty's team's still solid, but like whenever you're posting, sub 75, you're going to fall. He had a good lead too in terms of points and got some wins early in the season, but he just hasn't done anything the last couple weeks. So yeah, I mean, he's going to fall until that turns around. Then I had 5-6 between me and Travis, about the same. I think our teams are just very, very similar pretty much in all aspects. Not necessarily like the roster makeup, but you can see our cumulative wins here. I'm slightly leading. He has 1 actual win on me. I think if you go look at our total points, he's got 655 to my, so he's leading me by less than 10 points. Like, yeah, that's just, you could have flipped either of us back and forth, and I guess I just left them how they were last week. I do think I get a little bit of an added bump from Devontae coming back and maybe from Nick Chubb. So I do think that helps my team. I know that I talked about Travis getting back. Who's he getting back? Oh, A.J. Brown. But I think Garrett Wilson takes a little bit of a knock, and then we'll see how beneficial it is to Amari to go to Buffalo. But if this ends up helping Amari Cooper more than Devontae gets helped going to the Jets, then you could easily flip us back. And Nico's still waiting. He'll eventually get him back on the team too. I feel like you're just playing the what if game between the two of us. Caleb's team is still solid too. I think the three of us are kind of neck and neck, honestly. Obviously his cumulative wins are fine. He only does have the 2 wins though, which makes, again, he has a lot to catch up to the top of the board. But because this kind of like middle section of the board is within a game or so of each other, like I guess you could say Caleb is really only 1 game out of the number 4 playoff spot, right, in terms of wins, because it would be Andrew, Carl, Travis, and then all these guys with 3. Caleb really, you obviously want wins. This isn't good to only have 2 wins, but this is very overcomable, right, at this point in the season. So still solid. I still think there's like a cutoff for kind of this middle third of the league right here. Mark's team does fine. They also have 3 wins. If he can keep this turnaround going, he had a good week this week. He could easily start climbing this board as well. I'm not ready to start moving him up really too much right now, just because everyone else is also having solid weeks. He scores the same as Caleb, so he's gonna just kind of sit where he is right now. I'll kind of call out on Caleb's team too. This -3, kind of like the opposite of what I said about Logan, where just last week with how these 4 teams fell, we really could like mix and match these any way we wanted to. And then I think with Caleb just losing this week and having a lower score than me and Travis, just barely, but you gotta base it on something. It is what it is. I think these could all be contenders for the number 5 spot, really. But yeah, Mark's gonna hang out where he is, which is not bad, right? If you can keep scoring 110 a week, you'll move up the board. You just got to be consistent with it. K-Man had a solid week, so he gets the jump on Tron, who had a down week, and he has the extra win. So this extra win is actually probably even more important for K-Man than anybody else. The rest of the teams, even like Caleb with only 2 wins, or Logan maybe underperforming a little bit in terms of wins, these teams are all good enough that they'll be able to compete in the back half of the season for a playoff spot. Matt's team, I don't think is, based on pure talent. But if they can win games, he could sneak into that 4 spot, regardless of how good his actual team is. So he's going to rely on a little bit of luck in the back half of the season. I just don't think the roster has the talent. But it is still very much a possibility that he makes the playoffs. Just with the right scheduling, right? So yeah. Tron's team, really, I guess, they were, what did they score this week? 88. Not a great score, only 2 wins. His team has just been kind of up and down. It hasn't had the consistency to really stick around sort of in the 5 through 8 tier. They've had a couple games where they popped off, I believe. And by pop off, I mean that in a very soft way. 7-4, 9-2 last week. Nothing really to write home about. So they're going to sit there at the 10 spot. Chris, you get to move up 1 spot, even though you still don't have a win, really just because of how bad John is. John, back-to-back low-score weeks. Really, really terrible. I don't know. I know we have both Pacheco and Cooper Kupp coming back for these 2 teams, so maybe they'll have to fight it out to see who who's going to deliver more, but I don't think any one player is going to help really any of these bottom three teams. C-Mac, Pacheco, Cooper Kupp. I just don't think it's going to make a huge difference. So yeah, that it is what it is this week. But yeah, I guess that's about it. Here's your final rankings for week 6. And we'll see what happens in week 7. That'll be the halfway mark of the regular season for us. So should get interesting. Peace.